Hello, I'm Sora Lexon, and this is Lesson 30, Acquiring Power. How? The short answer? Depolarize already. So today I'm going to go over polarity in more depth because assimilating the rule of polarity and then putting that operating principle into effect is very different from just understanding what the Hermetic law of polarity is as an idea or conceptually. You have to be able to apply this law. If you can't, then you're not going to be able to access magic willfully. Period. If you can't figure out polarity, then no occultist, no matter their level of training or experience in the craft, is going to be able to help you. There are always more listless seekers than initiates, and more half-hearted joiners than the rare, authentic, occultic practitioners. And the aspect which separates the many from the few is the work involved, the actual practice itself. I've spoken about this before, but your ability to draw, harness, and then direct magical energy, Luke's energy, is very much like the training of any other muscle. You have to do the practice to make it strong. You have to do the work involved to gain access to your abilities. It's just like anything else in real life. And then you'll be able to usefully manipulate those abilities the way you wish to. I hear commentary constantly from those who are only partially engaging in their occultic practices and then complaining of the great art not working for them. Pretty much every time I hear someone say anything along the lines of, "It's not working for me," then I know it's a matter of them not doing the work for themselves. So yes, there was a reason I began all of these lessons with detailed instructions on things like the fourfold breath, meditation practices, and the middle pillar ritual. You do actually have to do the training involved. You have to work on yourself, right? Whether you're Buddha or Jesus Christ, they're all saying the same thing. You have to do the work, and you actually have to become depolarized. Those techniques that I gave with constant and consistent use will help you become depolarized. But you do have to actually do them or something very similar to them. Dedication, discipline, fortitude. What's worthy is not always easy. You have to do something like the middle pillar or the pillar ritual every single day. Yes, daily, for anywhere between 6 months to a year to actually start to become depolarized. Watching a few of my or someone else's YouTube videos, or reading a book on the alchemical practice of depolarization work. And then dabbling perhaps here and there with the occasional meditation session. That just isn't going to get it done. The practices I've explained are far more than some self-validating method that you're being given. They have actual interpretable effects over time. But those effects, just like lifting weights in the gym, right, rationally in the real world, they are only created with persistence over time until it becomes the form's normal and natural state. If you haven't been doing depolarization work for at least 6 months every single day, you aren't depolarized yet. You aren't. And you need to be depolarized to access and work with genuine magic. It's as simple as that. If you began depolarization work and followed through with it daily from when I first mentioned it, say, early on in these YouTube podcasts, then good job. You've already been at this for 3 months. You can likely feel some of the effects I've discussed already. And you're possibly already halfway there, right? You're halfway possibly to being depolarized enough to move forward into more energetic workings, more of your magical higher level practices. However, if you haven't been doing the work, then just listening to this video now, it's going to have you rendering opinions and judgments on everything I'm saying, negative or positive. And you're going to be having reactions to each and every piece of information that I'm bringing forward, even now. You see, if you're polarized, then you're going to hear this the way you're still hearing and seeing and interpreting everything from a polarized position, a one-sided point of view that you aren't even aware you might have. So for those of you who are doing the practice and have an actual resonant sensation of what I'm explaining, you're already reaping benefits. For those of you who didn't and are asking yourselves, why become depolarized? Well, right now you're an easily manipulated magnet that anyone with the slightest bit of occult training can toss around and make stick to things or make you repelled by them. In layman's terms, your current conditioning to render opinion makes you incredibly easy for adepts, others in the know, to control you. If you depolarize yourself, your awareness will be heightened by a staggering degree. It is only from a neutral viewpoint that you can see both sides of things effortlessly. A polarized individual wears a blindfold that doesn't allow for full vision. They can only see things from one side, from within the context of automatic bias. And in only ever being able to interpret information from one side, from one pole, they remain oblivious to the many varied assessments, opportunities, and paths a depolarized occultist has at their disposal. So there's that. You can find polarized people who have fallen prey to this listless majority's ever-present stupefaction, right, towards being a polarized drone just about everywhere. You can see it and find it everywhere. In politics, in religion, in any group or any situation that accepts and then reinforces the mindless tendency to render polarized opinion and judgment on things or others. If you want to understand just how fundamentally flawed being caught in a polarized state of being is, what a weak state it is to be in, all you have to do is think of a single instance in your life, and there will be one, where someone, despite all of your best and most considerate efforts, was actually incapable of seeing things from your point of view due to their own inherent biases. I'm not talking about not just disagreeing with you, right? Or perhaps lacking accommodating personality traits, but an instance where it occurred to you that a person literally could not see or hear things from your perspective at all. Someone who was fully incapable of doing that due to their own completely ingrained conditioning of bias. When someone can't even entertain the idea of something else being a possibility to then make an informed decision on, that's being polarized, and that's how weak of a state it is. Some are more obvious about it than others, right? But if you haven't done depolarization work yourself, you are functioning from within that paradigm to a greater or lesser degree. Probably to a greater degree than you know or are yet capable of admitting, given the pressures of conformity that are around you. They are ever present, and they have always been around you. And you will continue to function from that weakened position and be easily manipulated in every perspective you have, even though you don't think that's what's going on, until you do the work necessary to free yourself from being polarized. Why not allow yourself to acquire the power of gaining authentic perspective? Is it scary? Perhaps. Is it worth it? Absolutely. A polarized person cannot grasp concepts being offered by others who don't share their own opinion. They are ingrained within a bias that doesn't allow them to think or feel anything other than anyone who disagrees with me is an idiot. When you hear people talk about the right and the left, for instance, you hear these terms in politics, right, a lot. Now I just said right again. I'm not intending to confuse you. I think you know what I mean. Someone's coming from the right or they're coming from the left, right? That's how we discuss politics. Why do you think that has found a way to be broken down into directional labels, even within our language and how we perceive of it conceptually to then discuss it? It's polarity. It's people who know how to use, inform, and direct polarity that are applying those labels for others who are far less informed and more easily manipulated to pick up and use from themselves, therefore feeling like they have an authority that they don't. If you're on the right and adhere to the right, quote unquote, then everyone on the left is an idiot. And if you're on the left, then everyone on the right is a moron. And either way, both individuals on both sides are operating from a full-on inability to ever understand the perspective of the other opposite pole. If you ever feel yourself having a very firm opinion and reacting to someone emotionally, that's polarity. That is you operating from a state of polarity. Thus division. Thus group unit cohesion being created despite the individual's choices. Thus, easily controlled, easily manipulated, easily influenced. Polarized people are highly reactive. People who get upset very easily. That's polarity in operation. Like so many iron filings, needily clinging to or vehemently being repelled by, right? The poles of a magnet. If you picture a magnet and you know those loose iron filings and the magnet on one side will pick them up, right? And there's no way to get them back off. But on the other side, it'll push them away no matter how much you want to force them together. Poles in operation. So why do depolarization work? Well, because why be an iron filing and be moved around however the magnet chooses when you can be the center of the magnet with access to all the energetic currents and the ability to willfully direct them. Becoming depolarized will make you impervious to common bias and common manipulations, and they are being used by people who know how to use them. Every occultist that is an adept in their craft knows what polarity is and how it functions. And if they choose to, they can use it against those who don't understand it correctly or know how to apply it or depolarize themselves. A depolarized person is extremely difficult to influence against their will. See, that's what occultists have access to because they aren't reactive, right? An occultist acts instead of reacts, right? A depolarized person, I should say, acts instead of reacts. They choose rather than having choices made for them. When you function from a strong stance, from the neutral center of the fulcrum's balance, the swings of the seesaw or the pendulum do not affect you as much, or can be chosen willfully how you wish them to affect you and where and how you wanted them to take you places. You will no longer care about wasting time or energy arguing with people. You won't care. You won't care about endlessly debating things with people anymore. But you'll now be in a position that you could make an argument from either side of the spectrum if you felt like it. You know who was an adept, just fully adeptly depolarized thinker? Einstein. So there's a million quotes from him, right, about the highly imaginative nature of scientific phenomena, right? Spooky movement at a distance. You don't approach that concept without some understanding of higher level connections than our human perspective yet gives us direct access to. You just don't. I mean, look at how he even labeled it. Spooky movement at a distance. Anyway, my point is, here's a man who used thought experiments. And you can look that up on the internet and find out what those are. They're incredibly useful, right? Here's a man that was historically known for being able to meditatively enter into his own mind, his own head, for lack of a better description, and then mentally evaluate a projected framework, a projected environment sometimes, or construct or equation to arrive at an informed and useful conclusion he otherwise wouldn't have had access to. That has got to be one of the highest levels of depolarized state awareness in operation. To be able to mentally create an environment, such as functionally traveling at the speed of light, which he's discussed doing, right? He wrote about that he actually created that in his mind and saw himself traveling that way with absolutely no predetermined bias of applied data informing the outcome, and then using that level of neutral approach to an inquiry, this very depolarized thought experiment that led to finding E equals MC squared, right? I'd call that some pretty heavy logical and rational evidence for one more really great reason to become depolarized. Feeble bias, that's it. That's all a polarized person has access to. And it tends to be the norm. Do you want to be that person? Probably not. If you're listening to this YouTube occultic magic lesson podcast, right? My educated guess is that you've already recognized that being that person isn't an awesome proposition. Why limit yourself when the power you can have access to is boundless? So when it comes to acquiring power, depolarize already. Until next time.